January 23, 1959. 10 young people board a train in Sverdlovsk, Soviet Union, bound for one of the most remote regions of the northern Ural Mountains. They're experienced hikers, all members of the Ural Polytechnic Institute's sports club. Their leader is 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a fifth-year engineering student known for his meticulous planning and love of the wilderness. Their goal: a winter trek to Otorten Mountain, a challenging but achievable route for experienced skiers. The journey would earn them the highest certification in Soviet engineering, Grade 3, the most difficult. The group is in high spirits. They joke, sing songs, document everything with cameras. Among them, Zinaida Kolmogorova, a witty 22-year-old economics student, Rustam Slobodin, a skilled guitarist, Lyudmila Dubanina, a strong-willed economics major, and Alexander Kolevatov, a physics student with a mysterious past. On January 28th, one member, Yuri Yudin, falls ill and turns back. It saves his life. He's the last person to see his 9 friends alive. As the group ventures deeper into the wilderness, they leave behind the last traces of civilization. The temperature plummets to -30 degrees Celsius. Snow begins to fall heavily. But these are experienced winter hikers. They've handled worse. On February 1st, they make camp on the slopes of a mountain the local Mansi people call Coldest Mysteries. In their language, it means dead mountain. That night, something happens that defies explanation for over 60 years. By mid-February, the group is overdue. At first, officials aren't concerned. Delays are common in winter expeditions. But when days turn to weeks, families demand action. On February 20th, a search party finally sets out. The rescuers are experienced trackers, soldiers, and fellow students. What they expect to find? Perhaps a member injured, maybe the group delayed by weather, at worst a tragic avalanche. What they actually find is far more disturbing. On February 26, they locate the tent. It's still standing, partially collapsed under snow, on the exposed slope of Coldest Mysteries. This is strange. Experienced hikers don't camp on exposed slopes where wind is strongest. They camp in tree lines, in sheltered areas. But the tent's location is the least disturbing thing about it. The tent has been cut open from the inside. Long, deliberate slashes through the fabric. The cuts are made by people trying to get out fast, so fast they couldn't use the entrance. Inside, the searchers find everything: food, warm clothes, boots, equipment, all abandoned. In the snow outside, they find footprints. 9 sets of footprints, some barefoot, some in socks, some in a single boot. The tracks lead downhill, toward the tree line, about a mile away. The tracks suggest the hikers left in an organized group, walking calmly at first, not running in panic. But they left without coats, without boots, in -30-degree weather. What could make experienced winter hikers abandon their tent and all their survival gear in those conditions? The search team follows the footprints down the mountain. At the forest edge, beneath a large cedar tree, they find the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivonoschenko and Yuri Doroshenko are found near the cedar tree, dressed only in underwear. Their hands are burned. Above them, branches of the cedar are broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting someone climbed the tree frantically. A crude fire had been built beneath, now cold. Both men died of hypothermia. But there are strange details. Patches of skin are missing from their bodies, described in the autopsy as brown leather-like discoloration. Searchers find 3 more bodies between the cedar and the tent, spaced out as if they were trying to crawl back. Igor Dyatlov is found 300 meters from the cedar, Zinaida Kolmogorova 330 meters, and Rustam Slobodin 480 meters from the tree. All 3 died of hypothermia. But Slobodin has a small crack in his skull, not fatal, but indicative of trauma. Dyatlov's body shows he was trying to dig himself into the snow before he died. The autopsies reveal frostbite, minor abrasions, but nothing that explains why they left the tent. The medical examiner notes no external injuries of a nature to cause death. 4 bodies are still missing. The snow is deep. The search continues through March, then stops for winter. It resumes in May when the snow begins to melt. On May 4, 1959, searchers find a den beneath 4 meters of snow in a ravine, about 75 meters from the cedar tree. Inside are the last 4 bodies: Lyudmila Dubanina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Alexander Zolotaryov. The autopsies on these bodies reveal something that turns the mystery into horror. Lyudmila Dubinina's body is missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. The tissue is described as cleanly removed, not torn by animals. Her chest has been crushed with such force that her ribs are broken. The medical examiner states it would require the impact of a car crash to cause such damage. Yet there are no external wounds, no bruising, no skin trauma, just massive internal injuries. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol's skull is fractured, a devastating injury that would have killed him almost instantly. Again, no external wounds. Alexander Zolotaryov has similar massive chest trauma, 5 broken ribs, internal bleeding. The force required would be tremendous. The medical examiner writes, "These wounds are not consistent with a fall or a blow from another person." But here's what makes it truly bizarre. Some of the bodies are partially dressed in clothes cut from the 2 uris found by the cedar tree. Dubinina is wearing Krivonoshenko's pants. Zolotaryov has Dubinina's faux fur coat wrapped around his leg. This suggests the surviving members stripped clothes from the first victims to stay warm, a desperate but rational act of survival. So the group was thinking clearly enough to scavenge clothing, to build a fire, to create a snow den. They were trying to survive. Yet something had driven them from the tent in the first place. The final autopsy detail is perhaps the strangest. Some clothing samples show elevated levels of radiation. Not dangerously high, but unexplained. The official Soviet investigation concludes in May 1959 with a statement that has haunted researchers ever since. The cause of death was a spontaneous force which the hikers were unable to overcome. What kind of force? The file is immediately classified. The area is closed to hikers and expeditions for 3 years. Families are told not to speak about it. The Soviet government clearly wants this buried. But secrets don't stay buried, especially secrets written in 9 bodies on a mountainside. Perhaps an avalanche struck the tent, and in panic, they cut their way out and fled. But there was no evidence of an avalanche. The tent was still standing. The injuries don't match avalanche trauma. And experienced hikers wouldn't camp where avalanches occur. Some researchers propose that wind across the mountain created infrasound, frequencies below human hearing, that can cause feelings of dread, panic, and irrational fear. Perhaps the hikers were driven mad with unexplained terror and fled. But this doesn't explain the massive internal injuries. In 1959, the Soviet military was testing missiles and weapons in the Ural region. Some researchers believe the hikers witnessed a test gone wrong or were killed by a shockwave from an explosion. This might explain the internal injuries and the radiation. But why slash the tent? Why leave calmly at first? Perhaps someone attacked them. But who, in the middle of nowhere, in the dead of winter? And why leave no tracks except those of the hikers themselves? Why would attackers not steal anything from the tent? Several of the hikers' journals and diaries survived. In the final entries, some mention strange lights in the sky. Other groups hiking in the region in February 1959 reported seeing bright orange spheres floating over the mountains on the night of February 1st. One compelling detail: Lev Ivanov, the lead investigator, stated years later that he was ordered to close the case and that he believed some sort of fire spheres were involved. He saw no other explanation for the injuries and the radiation. Here's what we know happened. 9 experienced hikers cut their way out of their tent in the middle of the night. They walked, not ran, down the mountain without proper clothing. Some tried to make a fire. Some tried to return to the tent. 4 sought shelter in a ravine. Within hours, all were dead. Some from hypothermia, some from injuries so severe they seemed impossible without external wounds. Something on that mountain was so terrifying, so dangerous, that freezing to death seemed preferable to staying in the tent. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the investigation. In 2020, they announced their conclusion: a rare type of avalanche. Most researchers consider this explanation inadequate at best, a cover-up at worst. The site can be visited today. Tour groups trek to the pass now known as Dyatlov Pass in honor of the leader. Hikers report feelings of unease, of being watched. Some report strange lights. Most report nothing but wind and snow and the weight of knowing that 9 people died here in terror, and we still don't know why. Yuri Yudin, the man who turned back and survived, spent the rest of his life haunted by that decision. He died in 2013, never knowing what killed his friends. The families of the 9 have never received a satisfactory answer, and somewhere on Dead Mountain, the truth remains buried. Perhaps in snow, perhaps in classified files, perhaps in a reality we're not equipped to understand. The case file contained one final detail that investigators never explained. Several cameras were found with the bodies. When the film was developed, the last photographs showed strange lights in the distance, blurred and orange. Whether they're lens flares, campfires, or something else entirely, no one can say. The images exist. 9 people went into the mountain. 9 people died there. And 65 years later, we still don't know what they were running from.